Welcome back to my channel. It's been, I don't know, again, like another 2 months or so since I've uploaded. I'm just not very consistent with that whole uploading thing. But yeah, I did film a video, but then I threw it away, because the lighting was bad, and most of my videos have bad lighting, but like that one was particularly bad, and I just kind of wanted to get rid of it. Also, I didn't really want to edit it because it was me getting ready for prom, and it's like, meh. This episode's gonna be a little bit more spicy, a little bit more opinionated. Um, Essentially what I'm doing is my political hot takes. So that'll be fun. So I created a list of 14. I think the last two are kind of just lame-os, and I might add some in between. Yeah, let's start off with number one. The government should seize corporations that produce the highest amount of carbon emissions. I think it's reasonable. My justification is, even though like maybe it's not all, like most of our companies aren't like producing all the carbon emissions in America, however, there is a significant amount, I'd say, that it's like, maybe you should do this. But just 100 of all the hundreds of thousands of corporations in the world have been responsible for 71% of the global GHG emissions that cause global warming since 1998, according to the Carbon Majors database. And with that added, on as like a little sneak piece, with that added, we should abandon fossil fuels and move over to either renewable or nuclear energy. So, basically, the corporations that are most responsible for carbon emissions are corporations that use fossil fuels such as coal, and I'm kind of like uncomfortable with that idea entirely. So my proposition is get rid of the need to use fossil fuels. Of course there's always going to be like concerns with nuclear energy because it's like a thing and like it melts down. However, with strong infrastructure it could definitely work out, and I'm all for that thick renewable energy. Political hot take number 2 is those who do not believe in global warming / climate change should not have the ability to hold office. My justification is essentially that I have lost all care in a system that doesn't care about my own well-being and my future. So why should I care about the well-being and like the ability for someone to hold office if they do not care for mine well-being? Like people who are getting into office that don't really care about carbon emissions are not like necessarily from my state, and I can't just vote them in office unless they're a president, which is yikes. But yeah. Also, because the planet is like 11 years away from irreversible damage dealt to it by us humans, I'm kind of like uncomfortable with that, and I really do not care about your freedom of speech if you're gonna blatantly ignore like the 7 billion lives of others that are gonna be lost because of it. But yeah, I don't care about your ability to participate in democracy if you're not going to care about my ability to live. My third one is centered around capitalism and really going to hit home. Capitalism is a toxic system perpetuated by the upper class and brainwashed the working class into believing the thought of the American dream and making them buy into a system that actively works against them. Essentially what I'm saying is a lot of people in the working class buy into a system and help vote and put people into office that don't actually care about them, but instead care about perpetuating the capitalist system, which greatly only benefits the rich, as according to the wealth disparity keeps continually growing, and I'm very uncomfortable with that. I'm like kind of tired of the upper class like ruling the world, you know? And I believe that capitalism help that happen. It's disgusting the fact that a lot of the people in the lower class believe capitalism can help them fix their own situations, even though that is blatantly shown to be almost like factually incorrect. The only time that capitalism may have helped the lower class was when FDR came into office, and he's like, hey, let's try a welfare state, which is inherently like not very capitalistic in nature. So I'm just saying, I believe that capitalism has brainwashed a lot of people in the middle class to keep voting into office representatives that don't actually represent their well-being and interests, and instead represent more along the lines of people who are wealthy. So, number 4, a welfare state isn't actually bad, as it benefits the disadvantaged and actually helps stimulate the economy, as it takes money out of the hands of the bourgeoisie by taxing them. Essentially, what I'm saying is wealthy people actively harm the economy because of the fact that, essentially, what it's known as
Is bad.
kind of a similar problem that we had during the Great Depression and why we kept putting money back into the hands of the poor people by like putting programs out there, because poor people will actively spend money, meanwhile the rich people will start hoarding the money and their supplies, thus only harming the economy because they're keeping money away from the system and regulating and like circulating it throughout. So what I'm saying is a welfare system isn't bad because poor people are going to spend the money anyways. So why not just try it? Like 5 countries have it. The modern welfare state nations include Norway, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden, and Finland, as well as Germany, France, and the Netherlands. And honestly, if they're doing fine, I think we could do fine if we just stop like stigmatizing welfare and helping them. And I blame Ronald Reagan. I hate Ronald Reagan. I'm so opposed to Ronald Reagan. You have no idea. Ronald Reagan's definitely like one of the worst presidents I think we've ever had out there. Even if he did solve the stagflation, I don't really care about that. He perpetuated this idea called welfare queens, where you like get this idea of like black women, which is 1, extremely racist, and 2, factually incorrect. A lot of people on welfare aren't just like abusing the welfare system to like earn money and like not have to participate at all. Plus, if they are welfare queens and they're spending money, they're still helping the economy. I don't get it. I sincerely hate Ronald Reagan with all my heart, and like his economics was so bad. Don't even get me started. I'm already started. Who cares? So adding on to this notion of like the welfare state that I've already brought up, my number 5 is we should tax the ever-living fuck out of the upper class and or the 1%. My justification for this is forcing a 1%er to pay 50% of their earnings is not the same as forcing someone in the lower class or an impoverished person to pay 10% of their income, as on average someone in the 1% earns $1.32 million. Meanwhile, to be considered low income, you have to make less than $47,000 a year. So when you're already making like below like a lot of reasonable living standards with like just trying to support yourself, you're kind of fucked if they take away 10% of your income. That's $4,700. Meanwhile, if you take away half of $1.32 million, they're still making over 500 grand a year. Who the fuck cares about the rich? They literally can still live a lavish life if they get a shit ton of their money taken away. Meanwhile, if you take away a fraction of a fucking poor person's income, you're just disadvantaging them more. So why not just fucking tax the shit out of the rich? I'm so tired of this like notion of soaking the upper class or the wealthy by just let's give them tax cuts. Let's make a system in where they can fucking write everything off of their income. Like, I'm so done with it. It is perpetually insane. And plus, they don't even like do that much to help like stimulate the economy through like regressive taxes. The fucking lower class still pays so much in regressive taxes. So why not just fucking tax them more? Like, I don't get it, man. I think that being wealthy is literally killing the world. Anyways, adding on to like that whole notion that I've previously mentioned. So currently, the current taxation system, and I'll put it like here or something. So when someone who makes low to middle income pays 22% of as a single filer and a wealthy person only pays 37%, it seems supremely unfair because now someone who makes $47,000 a year are giving away some like $9,000. Meanwhile, the wealthy are giving away less than that and are still making some fucking like, now they're paying less than 500,000 and they're still having an income of like what, 800,000? Like, I don't get it. Why don't we just tax the shit out of them. It's not that hard. Alright, so next one is pretty drastic. I don't know how this would ever be implemented, but I think it is morally righteous, and so I will have this as my own opinion. If you vote for American foreign interventionism, you should be forced to watch your consequences. And so essentially what I believe is, if you're voting actively to harm the lives of millions of other peoples at the hands of the US government, you should be forced to watch your own actions and understand the lives you are ruining just because you voted that way. I'm tired of this level of separatism and that we have between our votes and our actions. A lot of the times our vote directly leads to what the United States government does. And I'm so tired of people being like, well, I voted this way, but that doesn't mean I didn't want it. But that's not how it works anymore. We are working in a world in where your vote can actively harm other people's lives, even if you don't believe it and it's only one vote. Just because it's a vote doesn't mean that it didn't help elect someone into office that actively wants to intervene in countries through the use of bombings. Look at the Middle East. We have absolutely fucking ravaged that land, and we are terrible in the Middle East. And I'm tired of people having this level of, ooh, but I didn't want that to happen. I just voted that way kind of mentality. It's disgusting. So, my seventh political hot take is, a woman's body is a woman's body. The state should have no interest in her pregnancy. I believe that getting abortions for a lot of women are extremely hard and emotionally taxing. And so the state making it harder for them to get an abortion is worse on the woman's body and mind and mental state. I'm tired of this ooh, we shouldn't be able to do this. They're killing a living human being, even though it's part of the woman's body. I don't know, man. Some abortions are the results of possible and severe birth defects that the child may have. For instance, I read a story where a woman's in her third trimester, whatever. That pregnancy had been severely harmed because the child didn't fully develop their brain, and thus in that instance the kid's life might have been over by 2 years. So what's the point of giving a child a life that is only to be subject to suffering? I don't get it. As well as there's a lot of women who cannot provide this great fucking life for these kids because their financial systems have changed and they aren't able to support a whole other human being. So in this instance, it is better to get an abortion than to put your kid through a fucking adoption system, and where many times the system still doesn't fucking care for them. I think it's absolutely absurd to put a woman into this situation. It is so excessive, especially when it's a young teenager who accidentally gets pregnant and needs to kind of get rid of the kid because their life will be ruined. And I'm tired of this whole notion that a lot of Southern conservatives are but what if you give birth to the baby who saves cancer? What if that woman whose now life is completely stunted because they're forced to have a kid for carry that kid for 9 months and possibly raise it if their parents are so stigmatized against putting that kid up for adoption, is the one to cure cancer? I don't get it. I genuinely don't get it. Why are we valuing the potential life of somebody over the already alive person? I genuinely am tired of this whole notion of fucking, but it's a human being. It's not even a human being. Do you remember what it's like to be a fetus? Do you remember anything when you were in that fucking sack of your mother's womb? Do you get it? Do you remember it? Were you productive in it? No, you weren't. You were just there. I think I could do the very simple math for a lot of Republican senators, representatives, state legislators right now. Woman gets pregnant. Women doesn't have the means to support the kid. Woman puts the kids up for the adoption. Kid is in the adoption system. Thousands of kids more are in the adoption system that are unable to find a home, and thus their life is supremely impaired. Ooh. So, my next political hot take would be that moderates need to hold the same energy towards far-right extremists as they do with far-left extremists. My justification for this is it seems in the political sphere a lot of moderates and or we're gonna say centrists uh seem to always want the left to explain their actions quite extensively, but when the right does something or advocates for something like, I don't know, fucking removing an entire race from a country, they're kind of like, ooh, but like that's just their opinion. But when a far left extremist decides to throw a milkshake at somebody because they're advocating for such things, we need to have a week-long discussion about how throwing a milkshake on somebody is ethically wrong. And I'm kind of tired of having to have this discussion. Obviously, PR, it's not a good look to throw a milkshake at somebody, but reasonably, I think it's a great use of your political voice. And if you're not being listened to, might as well like do the best you can to explain your position more or show that you are anti somebody. Like, for instance, Antifa, they've done some kind of questionable things, and I think they're generally have a bad PR problem, but I don't think they're inherently wrong. I'm okay with them being the way they are if they're fighting against an ideology that entirely poses a huge threat on all minorities in the current United States, as well as the far right seems to have gaslit the centrists quite a bit and are like, and they lie all the time. And I feel like the far left decides to be open and honest, and I don't think the far right holds the same energy. And I think I'm kind of tired of moderates being like, oh, but like you threw a milkshake at them. That's kind of mean. And but like the moment you see fucking, I don't know, Charlottesville riots, a lot of people in the moderates are like, oh, they're just exercising their political speech. Why can't we exercise our political speech without criticism, but they can? And obviously, Charlottesville probably isn't the best example because I think notoriously that was bad. But I have seen some centrists defend it, saying it was like history and all that stuff, but like ignoring the entire like encompassing situation surrounding the fact on why those statues were built and how they were actually to be symbols of oppression and racism against minority groups. Like, I'm just saying, it's not a great image when you're defending far rightists and you're kind of like falling along the far right spectrum. So, my next political hot take would be number 9. We should abandon the Second Amendment. I believe we should amend the Constitution, hashtag 28th Amendment, if ERA doesn't pass, and get rid of the Second Amendment. My justification, I have a few justifications. So, one, I'm tired of hearing about shootings every other day. I feel like as an American citizen, it's kind of depressing to hear about how someone else was shot today or how another school was shot up. And I get it, like school shooting or like shootings take up such a minority in um in violent crime, but I'm I'm just uncomfortable with the fact that we're still allowing this situation to take place and we've barely taken any action. And the most action we've taken is getting rid of bump stocks. And like, I'm glad they did that. It was kind of like a nice show of support towards students and such. But I still don't think a lot of younger people's voices are being heard on this issue because a lot of younger people are being disproportionately affected by this problem of mass violence at the hands of other students. And I'm kind of like, and I want to reduce the ability for people to be able to access guns that could result in these violent crimes. As well as, I mean, it would just make me more comfortable going to school every single day. We had a threatened school shooting this year at school, and I thought I knew who it was. Thankfully, I did it, because I thought that day going into school, like, if he shows up, I'm fucking dead, because I pissed off this kid quite a bit. And I think I would be prime on his fucking target list. Number 10 is a little bit of a easier, more calm hot take in the grand scheme of things for me, and that is equity over equality. Equality has essentially failed us in a sense where those in the lower middle class who would greatly benefit under an equity system, which would help them reach college and afford such an education, as well as get them into nice colleges that could help them later in life, are totally pushed out of the way because we decide to hold a more, I don't know, strong attitude towards everybody's equal. We should love everybody and treat everybody the same. Even though a lot of people who work way harder than people who are already advantaged at birth are technically still worse than them on some level, but they've worked 1,000 times harder to get to where they're at. Meanwhile, a rich person might have to like work like this much in comparison to a poor person or a black person and a white person. But that's just me. I believe equality has failed us. Number 11. I don't think this is that much of a hot take, but it's still a hot take to some people, I guess. Racism isn't over, and being colorblind to a race is just failing people of color. If you're gonna say you're colorblind to a situation, I get like colorblind employment, I guess, and being like, but I'm only treating my applicants like equally. But I don't know. A lot of black people are disproportionately harmed by our current system because of things like redlining, and because of redlining forcing them into like a worse education, which only just harms their chances in life altogether, and could force them into joining the military if they want to actually up their life. And like, not even that is a strong guarantee because the government usually treats their veterans like shit. Essentially, the only way for a person of color who is in an extremely disadvantaged situation to get into college without like scholarships, if they couldn't even get that, is to go through the US Army, which isn't like even available to everybody because we have a volunteer system now, and a lot of times it's hard for certain people to be even able to join the army because they have like certain illnesses that could prevent them from joining it. And I'm kind of done with the notion of equality overall. I think it's just, I mean, kind of done with the notion that we should be colorblind as a society, because society has clearly been failing at being colorblind, as there's huge disparities between white people and people of color's income, particularly black people. So my next point would be Black Lives Matter should not be treated the way it's being treated. Generally, I don't think Black Lives Matter is doing much wrong. I think it is practicing just like Martin Luther King did, but just like a little bit more aggressive and like taking more along the lines of we should be treated fairer. Martin Luther King worked towards what we call de jure, which is essentially in law equality. Meanwhile, Black Lives Matter works more towards de facto equality, which is essentially in function equality. And so Martin Luther really tried to get laws to work in favor with African Americans. Meanwhile, I believe Black Lives Matter works way more in systematic structures and like society and all that, and trying to get black people onto the same level of white people. And I believe that I feel like we should hold the same energy that we hold towards Martin Luther King as we do with Black Lives Matter, because sure, Martin Luther King was a fucking great speaker and everybody loves him, but like not everybody in his day loved him. Martin Luther King like was not popular when he was alive, and I think we all ignore that. I believe like, I don't know. I believe that if we really are against racism, we should help African Americans, people of colors, black people, however you want to say it, move up in society, because there's this huge disparity between whites and blacks, Asians and blacks. It's just profound. And I'm tired of like this, ooh, Black Lives Matter, block the road. But like Martin Luther King did the same thing, and we're not like fucking hating Martin Luther King because he did it. We're saying, oh, Martin Luther, he did all these great things. We're fucking like jerking him off essentially. And like I get it, I would too, but like I believe we should hold like a better energy and like be more like kind towards people who are currently suffering in today's society. It's like the moderates that are really fucking killing me, and I like hate saying that because I know a lot of moderates who aren't like I don't take a strong stance on anything. But a lot of moderates are like, ooh, that's like, ooh. And like Martin Luther King did, like, said the same fucking thing in a letter from a Birmingham jail in like 1960 something. He said that moderates were the hardest people to fucking work with because they are like, I agree with your notion, but I don't think right now is the time. And like, when is the time then? When is the time to like pursue your rights? And I'm tired of a lot of moderates right now being like, ooh, tonight, right now is not the time. I think we're working on other things. Then, like, when is the time to work on things? I think it's like the same problem with like white idolization of Booker T. Washington. I get Booker T. Washington's like a cool dude and everything, but I disagree with his methods heavily. For me, I was Du Bois for life. The only way to get rights to move forward in America, if you're gonna like protect yourselves, you're gonna get your rights, is to actively protest and try to push for your rights. There's no way you're just gonna like suddenly change all of society, because if you're gonna just do nothing, people are still gonna hold the same fucking values. And I'm kind of just tired of this. Let's wait a few more years to do this. Like, when's the right time? And I feel like Black Lives Matter is saying, when else are we supposed to do this, essentially? Like, a lot of African Americans are being fucking killed for no reason. And I'm tired of it. I'm like, genuinely tired of it. I'm like tired of a lot of things though. Ooh, my next one is number 13, and it's more towards like those who call themselves classical liberals. Just because you say you aren't something doesn't mean you aren't something. Or just because you say you are something doesn't mean you are something. A lot of it matters in how you speak, how you act, everything of the above. Classical liberals would be like, well, I'm not a far rightist or I'm not a righty, but like they actively always protest against leftists and will always take the side of a rightist, and it's like clear that they're a righty, and I'm tired of it. And I just want people to hold the same energy. Like, people are like, I'm not anti-Semitic, but like they'll be say something super fucking supremely anti-Semitic. I'm just tired of it. You should just say what you are. And I would say I'm a far leftist. I think that's a fair assumption. And like my last one from this list is, the world is ending. Wake the fuck up. We're all fucked. Hello. Anyway, some quick hot takes in my round of quick hot takes is just call trans women women, as well as just call trans men men. Don't make gay jokes if you're not gay. And I hate myself.